So what's the state of 5G wireless technology? Honestly, it's been a real fight here in our local community, Eugene, Oregon, where me and a number of other people locally around here have been going to our city council meetings and speaking our mind about this subject to try to stop it, but it feels kind of like stopping a boulder rolling down a huge mountain with your bare hands. And so it's getting a little bit frustrating, but I'm optimistic because I believe in this fight, regardless of how fruitless it sometimes feels when the industry is so tied into government. But I wanted to share some of the things that I've shared at these city council meetings and some of our other local people here. You've heard a lot of different angles on this technology, and I want to present a different one because I think it's an important aspect to keep in mind. Both law enforcement and the military have largely abandoned a very similar technology called active denial system, which was used for crowd control because of health and safety concerns. It's a technology that was designed to literally heat the outer layer of the skin using millimeter waves and literally causes people to flee instantly because they feel like their skin is on fire. And this is the kind of technology that's being proposed to be used throughout the general public, close to people's homes. Like other people have stated, it's likely to cause a lot of litigation because of the safety concerns. There have been no health and safety testing on pulsed millimeter waves. When asked this in the literature, the responses that are quoted usually quote millimeter wave technology that is not pulsed. All of 5G technology uses pulsed millimeter waves, and the pulses are very important because they are the information that's being carried on the millimeter wave carrier wave. Without the pulse, the technology doesn't work. It doesn't carry a signal. All of it is pulsed millimeter wave technology. That's why I urge you to enact this emergency moratorium. Also join in this resolution that Portland is taking part in to stop the 5G rollout and stop any sites, including co-location and any small cell sites. I understand your position on the FCC and the Telecommunications Act of 1996, but I'd like to point out that the arguably highly unconstitutional and highly outdated Telecommunications Act of 1996 does not impede a local municipality from protecting its citizens against a harmful technology. By not protecting your citizens, us, you're really putting yourself into a position of massive liability. I also want to point out something that kind of puts all this stuff that you've been hearing tonight in perspective, because the telecommunications industry has actually been self-insured for decades now. And the reason that they are self-insured is because even though there's a lot of controversy over the technology and the safety of the technology, the one thing that's clear is the insurance carriers know that there is massive liability on this technology, and they will not back the industry. And that is something that you should keep in mind when you consider your position on this technology, because you're putting yourself in a position of massive liability by following an unjust, highly outdated act.
I'm Paul Dart. I'm a physician in Eugene. I'm here to talk about 5G. I'm not here to tell you what the FCC says you can or can't do about it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a physician who spent several years studying the health effects of pulse microwave cellular transmissions in detail. What I'm here to tell you is that there is clear documented evidence of harm from such exposures. And anyone who tells you that there really isn't that much known about the biological effects of this, either hasn't done any research on it or is blowing smoke at you. I gave you some information a week ago. I believe it was put in your email in trays or whatever they do for you. One of those articles was something I wrote for eWeb in 2013, reviewing a lot of the research up to that point in time. The other was a review by Martin Paul, where a meta-review of other reviews of this. He reviewed about 95 different research reviews. About 90 of them are in this pile here. I just want to say there's a lot known. Things that we do know about this. It's not the problem that things aren't known, it's that policymakers aren't paying attention to the research results. We know that RF can cause neurological effects, anxiety, depression, cognitive issues. Right now, a record number of children in high school and young people in college are on anxiety and antidepressive medications in our city and elsewhere in the country. And we're all getting just a little more revved up, I think. And part of that is these exposures. We know that RF can cause sleep disturbance. The CDC says it's a public health epidemic now. If we have more RF in this town, we'll have more of that. And I think that if you could shield your home right now, you'd be surprised at how much better you would sleep. We know that RF can decrease fertility, and right now fertility rates in the developing world are dropping more rapidly than anybody understands and that anybody can explain with current models of explanation. We know that RF can cause cancer in humans and animals, and right now, brain tumors are one of the leading causes of cancer in young children. It's a big change. Anything we can do to reduce the increase of exposure to these things in our town will be good for the health of this community. Anything we can do to delay or slow this will be helpful. I think that it's possible 5G will kind of break the back of this whole problem by making all these issues more clear. And it would be better if that happened in a different community than ours. So I urge you to consider anything you can to delay this issue from happening here.
Thank you.
Let's just be clear about what this technology is. Pulsed millimeter waves, phased array antennas, smart technology. SMART stands for Secret Military Armaments in Residential Technology. This is military technology being brought into the residential space, and it is a serious breach of our safety, and it really needs to not taken lightly. I mean, just look at any issue of aviation week in space technology going back decades, and you'll see how this technology has evolved. Headlines like radar becomes a weapon, directed energy takes an unexpected turn and surfaces as a handy anti-missile device that can be built into aircraft, ship, and ground-based radar. So things like unmanned aerial vehicles are supported by infrastructure like 5G. It's pretty commonly understood now that 5G is going to support autonomous vehicles, but what is not so clear is that it will also support a huge array of actual military aircraft, and this is something that we need to take note of. Active electronically scanned arrays, high-powered microwave technology, multi-platform radar technology insertion programs. These are all things that led up to directed energy weapons systems developed by Northrop Grumman and Raytheon and other military contractor companies under black projects. And that's what 5G is. And that's why this is really serious. Even if the federal government ends up, or federal government / telecoms sue local municipalities over this, it's worth getting into those lawsuits because we need to beat those lawsuits and stop this technology. Thank you. I've changed my opinion on this, and now I fully support 5G because I want more cancer, more disrupted sleep, more adrenal problems, more reproductive problems, more birth defects, more compromised immune systems, more crowded hospitals, more profit for doctors, more profit for pharmaceutical companies, more military drones policing our community. to protect us because clearly the police aren't doing their job? More autonomous vehicles crowding our roads, more surveillance? Or maybe we should have some logic and do the right thing and stop the madness. And regardless of the power that you guys might think the FCC and the telecoms may have, this is Eugene. We are known as a progressive community that should do the right thing and lead this fight against big business and corrupt politics, regardless of the outcome. Thank you. Regarding 5G wireless technology, in the past I've discussed how this is not about smartphone download speed and that there's been no health and safety testing. There's crazy disinformation campaigns about this technology, and that this whole 5G frenzy by the industry has an agenda of avoiding testing so they can implement this technology quick before the public realizes that how much harm this has the potential of creating, and that children are most at risk because of nosebleeds, headaches, fatigue, already with the current wireless technology, never mind the higher frequencies of the 5G. And this is a huge experiment on the public, and that insect and bird populations have already been impacted, that it's affecting insomnia, miscarriages, affecting birth rates and neurological and memory issues. Now you guys have been noticed on this anti-commandeering act. You can tell if you don't realize this is a jurisdictional argument. This is a jurisdictional issue. You've been noticed. Property values are going to decrease if you allow this to happen, and you will have liability on that. So it's time for you guys to do what you need to do and have an emergency moratorium on this issue, because if you don't, freedom of information requests are going to be filed, and it will come out what has been communicated between you guys. You're going to be liable, and your personal bonds at risk. Thank you.
5 of us are going to present this document to you. Since the mayor has not responded for 8 days to a request for a meeting from Families for Safe Technology, we will now present a part of our presentation for all to hear. The City Council has indicated that they will be willing to pass a moratorium halting small cell towers. However, they are hesitant, they claim, because they are afraid of being sued by the telecom companies based on FCC regulations. This is very unlikely. Here are some reasons why the city would be shielded from litigation. Number one, you have been instructed by the people, as is their right to do, secured by Section 26 of the Oregon Constitution, to pass a moratorium by July 10th, halting the proliferation of small cell towers and antennas. The people always reserve their right, when they deem it necessary with good cause, to correct government officials when they act beyond their powers. If that were untrue, we would be living under a dictatorship. No telecom company may, for any reason, invalidate an instruction from the people to their servants, our servants, forcing them to violate their constitutional oath, your constitutional oath, to protect us. 2, the city has no general contractual obligation whatsoever to provide any telecom company with permits to install small cell towers with antennas. The telecoms have no legal standing in court to sue the city without having a contract.
Number 3, the only recourse telecoms allegedly have for litigation is the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which they falsely claim gives them authority to sue a city for denying them a permit under certain circumstances. The anti-commandeering doctrine insulates cities from litigation If the federal government can't make a city comply with its regulations, then the telecoms have no basis for suing the city to make them comply. Number 4, telecoms, nor anyone else for that matter, have claimed that 5G is safe for the health of the people of Eugene. On the other hand, there are many doctors and scientists who have proof of the ill effects of EMF and from all of the various generations of wireless. Number 5, there is also more than enough reasonable and credible evidence proving 5G a safety, security, and privacy risk to the people of Eugene. The telecoms cannot sue the city if doing so would cause a potential risk to the people of the city. And as a note, I am also diagnosed by a doctor with EMF sensitivity. I'm just another person that's been diagnosed.
Your sworn constitutional duty to secure the natural, unalienable rights of the people that you claim to serve from any risk, health, safety, and security and privacy. No one can interfere with that duty, nor with the right of the people to be safe. It would be unlawful, immoral, and unconstitutional for such law to be passed in any city, state, or federal government. No private entity like a telecom company can sue to force a city official to relinquish their public trust duty of care. This is one of the reasons given by the courts for the justification for the anti-commandeering doctrine, which prohibits the federal government from forcing state or city officials to implement or enforce federal regulations against their will. The city attorney has claimed, quote, that the anti-commandeering doctrine does not allow the city to pass a moratorium, end quote. The reason given is vague, confusing, and contradictory, and she cites no authority or law to back her assertion. Here is a quote from the email she sent the council, quote, while the anti-commandeering doctrine provides that local governments cannot be compelled to enforce federal law, it does not allow a local government to violate or ignore federal law, end quote. The city would be violating and ignoring federal law if it refused to be compelled to implement and enforce the FCC's regulations in accordance with the Supreme Court's anti-commandeering doctrine. This city has already violated and ignored federal immigration law and federal marijuana law, and we need you to do the same for our safety for this FCC regulation of the carrying out of 5G. Thank you.
Number 8, the city of Sebastopol, California passed a 6-month moratorium on permitting small cell antenna towers in alleged violation of FCC regulations without being sued by any telecoms. Number 9, quoting Delta Air Corp versus Kersey, 1942. Quote, the policy underlying this exception to sovereign immunity is based on the principle that a municipal corporation cannot, under the guise of performing a governmental function, create a nuisance dangerous to life and health, end quote. The telecoms cannot sue the city in an attempt to compel it to create a potential public nuisance dangerous to life and health. Number 10, there's one other very important reason why the telecoms won't sue the city. In the 1996 Telecommunications Act was never meant to be enforced against the city of Eugene. Here's the definition of quote unquote, or quote state unquote in the Telecommunications Act. Quote, the term state includes the District of Columbia and the territories and possessions, end quote. That's all. Every time you see the quote state, end quote, or quote city, end quote, in the Telecommunications Act, it is referring to some federal territory, like Puerto Rico or its cities. It is not referring to any of the 50 states of the Union or any of their cities.
There are 2 distinct sovereign jurisdictions in America. The first and most prominent are the United States of America, the USA. In 1787, the USA then established the second sovereignty titled the United States under the Federal Constitution. The United States consists of the District of Columbia, its territories and possessions, commonly known as federal territory. Most U.S. law applies only to that federal territory and not to the 50 United States of America, unless they are very clearly included in the U.S. law definition of either state or United States. If the USA are not listed under either of those code definitions, then the term, quote, state, unquote, or United States refer only to some area of federal territory that is listed in the definition. The confusion arises because when we hear or read the word state, we automatically think of one of the 50 states of the Union. State is a generic word meaning land with a defined border, a population, and an established government. In international law, every country is called a state. The District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands are all federal, territorial states. Most federal law apply only to federal states known as territories. We also mistakenly use the term United States in everyday language to mean the 50 United States of America. If we hear that some federal law applies to the United States, we assume that that law applies to the 50 states of the Union when it does not. We are not federal U.S. states. We are sovereign USA states. The FCC does not have jurisdiction over the city of Eugene.
So even though 5G as the technology is rolled out is still in the testing phase, and a lot of the questions are still unanswered as to how it's going to be used and things like that. So there's a lot of unanswered questions really at this point still. But there are some things that you can do to help protect yourself. One of the things that I've done with my company for the last nearly 20 years, actually, it's been over 20 years really, I've been working with this kind of protection technologies. We import a number of products from Germany for protection. You can learn more about those at healthharmonic.com. If you are a practitioner or run a clinic of any sort, we can set you up with wholesale pricing so you can take care of your clients this way and help protect them as well. I also work with, as you'll see on that site, a number of pulsed magnetic and other energetic devices which can also help further mitigate these problems that we're facing in this perilous time of 5G wireless technology. So go ahead and check it out now at healthharmonic.com, and I'll see you over on the site. And thanks for watching this video.